So, what happens when a story is more than just a story, when it's actually an argument? Well, today we're digging into a comic book that is exactly that. It's this brilliant, super intricate deconstruction of one of the most famous graphic novels ever written. All right, let's get into it.
It's a question, really, that every creator has to ask themselves at some point, right? I mean, when one single work becomes so iconic, so massive, that it basically defines a whole genre, what do you do next? How do you move forward without just, copying what came before?
That shadow, well, that belongs to Alan Moore's Watchmen, of course. For over 30 years, it's been the gold standard for serious superhero comics. And the escape plan? That's Kieran Gillen and Caspar Weingart's Peter Cannon Thunderbolt. And this thing isn't just a response, it's a full-on jailbreak. So to really get Thunderbolt, you first have to understand that it is in a direct, and I mean often aggressive, conversation with Watchmen. It's this deep meta-commentary that uses the language of comics to, well, critique comics themselves. And this right here is the heart of what makes this series so dang fascinating. Watchmen famously deconstructed the superhero, but Thunderbolts, it goes a step further. It deconstructs the deconstruction itself, questioning the very tools and the entire legacy of that landmark work. Okay, so how does it actually pull this off? Well, it all starts by closing this big historical loop, using the very real-world history of its own characters as a kind of narrative engine. All right, this slide gets into some seriously cool, deep-cut comics history. See, before Watchmen was even a thing, you had these heroes from Charlton Comics. Alan Moore basically used them as a blueprint for his famous characters. Peter Cannon here was the direct inspiration for Ozymandias, and a detective called The Question inspired Rorschach. So now Gillen's series reclaims all that history by creating a new set of stand-ins to comment on the very characters that were already stand-ins themselves. I mean, how meta is that? It's just an incredible piece of self-aware storytelling. And it's not like these new characters are just lazy copies. Take Pyraphros, for example. He's the Night Owl guy, but he's got this whole Iron Man-style suit, which totally reflects how that kind of tech hero archetype has changed in the 30 years since Watchmen. It's a great way to show how the genre itself has evolved and absorbed all these new influences. And this is where this series' central argument really starts to take shape, because it's not just about the characters, it's about the very architecture of the comic book page itself. Now, to get this, we gotta talk about a concept called formalism. It sounds complicated, but in this context, it just means the visual mechanics of the comic, the panels, the gutters between them, the overall layout. And one layout in particular is absolutely key here. Yeah, the 9-panel grid. In Watchmen, it's famous for being this super rigid, controlling structure. It sets the pace like a metronome, a constant drumbeat. But in Thunderbolt, that same grid becomes something totally different. It transforms from a cage into a key. It's no longer just a storytelling device, it's an actual in-world power. And I mean, it gets incredibly literal. Peter Cannon actually takes a piece of chalk, draws a 9-panel grid on a wall, and then physically steps through it into another reality. Think about that. He isn't just in the comic, he's using its fundamental structure as a tool to travel through it. This is the huge conceptual leap the comic makes. It takes the metaphor of escapism and makes it completely real. The very structure that's supposed to contain the story becomes the tool the characters use to escape from it. It's just an incredibly clever and powerful idea. But, like any powerful tool, this mastery of form can also become a weapon or even a prison. And that brings us to the comic's central conflict, which is basically a battle between two different philosophies. So, on one side, you have our hero, Peter Cannon. He gets the grid, he uses it when he needs to, but he isn't defined by it. It's just a tool. But on the other side, you have his evil counterpart from another universe, and this guy worships the form. He's totally mastered it, but that very mastery has also trapped him. I mean, this evil Thunderbolt literally weaponizes the page. It's wild. He'll use the border of a panel to physically block a punch, or he'll sneak through the gutters, the white space between the panels, to ambush his enemies. He has total control over the comic's structure. And yet, that perfect mastery is his fatal flaw. See, he's so obsessed with perfecting the form that was established by this past work, the metaphorical Watchmen, that he can't innovate beyond it. He is completely stuck in a creative loop. And this is why his final defeat isn't just a plot point. It's a thematic necessity.
It's the comic's way of screaming that simply mastering an old form, no matter how perfectly you do it, isn't progress. It's a dead end.
Okay, so once that idea is firmly established, the comic widens its lens. It stops being just an argument with one book and becomes a conversation with an entire generation of creators.
The series is really suggesting that for decades, the comics medium has been stuck in this feedback loop, right? Constantly comparing itself to Watchmen, trying to copy its tone, its complexity, and Thunderbolt is basically arguing, hey, it's time to move on. And to prove its point, Gillen does this amazing thing where each issue is a stylistic pastiche of a major writer who became big after Watchmen. So you get one issue that feels like the widescreen big-budget action of someone like Warren Ellis. Then the next one dives into the surreal, metaphysical weirdness of Grant Morrison. There's even one that adopts the edgy, cynical vibe of Mark Miller. It's a dialogue happening in the very styles of the creators being discussed. So after all of this, all this complexity, the meta-commentary, the formalist games, the deep historical echoes, what is the series actually saying? What's the ultimate takeaway here? That's it, just 2 words. We can do better. The entire elaborate, brilliant argument boils down to this one simple, hopeful, and kind of defiant statement. We don't have to keep copying the past. We can honor it, sure. We can learn from it, but ultimately, we can do better. We can find new ways to tell our stories. And that really leaves us with this final question, doesn't it? Peter Cannon Thunderbolt argues that true creativity isn't about perfectly replicating a masterpiece. It's about having the courage to draw a new frame, to find a new door, and to step through it. And that's a question every artist, and really every one of us, eventually has to answer for ourselves.